The champagne bubbled like my wife's laughter, fake, forced, and about as genuine as a $3 bill. I watched Lena across our anniversary dinner table at Romano's, the town's fanciest restaurant, where the waiters wore bow ties and the prices made your wallet weep. 22 years of marriage, and she was putting on a show worthy of Broadway. "Oh, Nick, you're so thoughtful," she gushed, fingering the diamond earrings I'd bought her. The same earrings she'd circled in 3 different catalogs and left strategically placed on my nightstand for 2 months. Subtle as a sledgehammer, my Lena. I raised my wine glass, forcing a smile that probably looked more like a grimace. "To us, sweetheart, through thick and thin." "Through thick and thin," she echoed, but her eyes were scanning the restaurant like she was looking for someone, or avoiding someone. Hard to tell with Lena these days. The thing about being married to someone for over 2 decades is you start noticing patterns. Little things, like how she'd started wearing perfume to the grocery store, how her phone was suddenly password protected, how she'd developed a sudden interest in girls' nights out that happened 3 times a week. But tonight was special. Tonight was our anniversary, and Lena had insisted on Romano's. "It's where we had our first date," she'd said, batting those long lashes that had cost more than my truck payment. What she conveniently forgot was that our first date had been at Denny's because we were broke college kids. Romano's came later, much later, when my hardware store started turning a real profit. "Nick, honey, I need to powder my nose," Lena announced, standing gracefully in her little black dress that showed just enough leg to make the old guys at the bar turn their heads. She'd always been beautiful, my wife. Still was. That hadn't changed. What had changed was everything else. I watched her glide toward the restrooms, her heels clicking on the polished floor like a countdown timer. That's when I noticed him, Joel Haddon, sitting at the bar with a beer and a smirk that made me want to rearrange his pretty boy face. He was one of those guys who looked like he'd stepped out of a fitness magazine, all muscles and confidence and teeth so white they probably glowed in the dark. Joel was supposedly Lena's friend from the gym. She'd mentioned him a few times, always casual, always innocent. Joel showed me this great new workout routine. Joel thinks I should try that new protein shake. Joel this, Joel that. If I had $1 for every time she'd mentioned Joel in the past 6 months, I could have bought her diamonds from Tiffany instead of the local jewelry store. "Excuse me, are you Nick Weller?" I turned to find a woman in her 40s, slightly drunk, swaying next to my table. She had kind eyes, but the loose tongue that comes with too much wine. "Yeah, that's me." "Do we know each other?" She glanced around nervously, then leaned closer. "I was in the ladies' room just now. Your wife. She put something in your drink when you weren't looking. Thought you should know." My blood went cold. "What kind of something?" "Looked like pills. She crushed them up, stirred them in when you were talking to the waiter." The woman straightened up, suddenly seeming less drunk and more concerned. "I'm sorry. I know it's not my business, but if some guy was drugging my drink, I'd want to know." Before I could respond, she melted back into the crowd, leaving me staring at my wine glass like it might bite me. The deep red liquid looked innocent enough, but then again, so had Lena when I'd married her. I picked up the glass, swirled it gently, and noticed tiny white specks that hadn't been there before. My mind raced through possibilities. None of them good. What the hell was my wife trying to drug me with? And more importantly, why? The answer hit me like a freight train. If I was drugged, passed out, or sick, I wouldn't be able to perform, or follow her, or ask questions about where she was going after dinner. When Lena returned, looking flushed and slightly breathless, I was ready for her. "You look beautiful tonight," I said, raising my glass. "Let's make a toast." "Oh, how sweet!" She grabbed her glass eagerly, too eagerly. "To new beginnings," I said, and we clinked glasses. She drank deeply, while I barely wet my lips. What she didn't know was that while she'd been gone, I'd switched our glasses. Whatever she'd put in my drink was now swimming around in hers. The effects started about 20 minutes later. "Oh, God!" Lena gasped, her face going pale. "I think the seafood was bad. My stomach—" She doubled over slightly, one hand pressed to her abdomen. "Are you okay, honey?" I asked, all concerned husband. "Maybe you should go to the restroom." She practically ran, and I counted. She was gone for 15 minutes. When she came back, she looked like she'd been through a war. "I think we should go home," she whispered, sweat beading on her forehead. "Of course, sweetheart. Let me get the check." As I helped her to the car, I caught Joel's eye at the bar. He looked confused, checking his phone repeatedly, probably wondering why Lena wasn't texting him back. The drive home was interesting. Lena spent most of it groaning and making urgent requests for me to drive faster. By the time we reached our house on Maple Street, she was practically green. "Must have been something I ate," she mumbled. rushing inside and straight to our master bathroom. I sat on our bed, listening to the sounds of my wife's digestive distress, and felt something I hadn't experienced in months: satisfaction. Not because she was sick, I wasn't a monster, but because, for the first time in a long time, I was one step ahead of her. When she finally emerged, looking like death warmed over, she collapsed onto the bed, fully clothed. "I'm so sorry, Nick. This isn't how I wanted our anniversary to end." "It's okay, baby. These things happen." I stroked her hair gently. "You get some sleep. I'll clean up downstairs." She was snoring within minutes. That's when I made my move. Her purse sat on the dresser, black leather and expensive. A Christmas gift from last year when I'd still been stupid enough to think expensive gifts equaled love. I opened it carefully, like a surgeon making the first incision. What I found made my hands shake. A box of condoms. The expensive kind. The kind that definitely weren't my size. I was apparently more generously endowed than whoever she'd been shopping for. There was also a small bottle of pills I recognized from late-night TV commercials. Little blue helpers for men who needed a boost in the bedroom department. But the real kicker was at the bottom of the purse, tucked under her wallet like a dirty secret. A small box of laxatives. The fast-acting kind. I sat there on our bedroom floor, surrounded by the evidence of my wife's betrayal, and started laughing. I couldn't help it. The irony was too perfect. She'd tried to drug me with laxatives so I'd be stuck in the bathroom while she went off to play with her boy toy, but instead, she'd drugged herself. Justice, it seemed, had a sense of humor. I carefully put everything back exactly where I'd found it and went downstairs to think. Our living room looked like something out of Better Homes and Gardens. Lena had expensive taste and the credit card bills to prove it. Family photos lined the mantel, showing 22 years of marriage, vacations, holidays, anniversaries. We looked happy in those pictures. Maybe we had been, once. But looking at them now, I could see the exact moment things had started changing. It was subtle at first. Lena standing a little farther away from me, her smiles not quite reaching her eyes, her body language screaming that she'd rather be anywhere else. I'd been blind, or maybe just willfully ignorant. It's easier to pretend everything's fine than to face the truth that your marriage is circling the drain. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Sam, who worked at my hardware store. "How'd the anniversary dinner go? Did she love the earrings?" I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Dinner was very educational. I'll tell you about it tomorrow." "Everything okay, boss?" "Everything's about to be..." I turned off the phone and sat in the dark, planning my next move. Because if Lena thought she could play games with me, she was about to learn that I'd been playing chess while she was still figuring out checkers. The woman who'd warned me at the restaurant had done me a favor bigger than she'd ever know. She'd opened my eyes to what my wife really was, a cheating, scheming liar who thought I was too stupid to notice, but I'd noticed everything. The late nights, the new clothes, the sudden interest in fitness, the way she'd started doing her hair differently, all the classic signs I'd been too trusting to see. Well, no more Mr. Nice Guy. If Lena wanted to play dirty, I'd show her what dirty really looked like. The next morning, Lena emerged from the bedroom looking like she'd been hit by a truck. Her usually perfect hair was a mess. Her face was pale, and she moved like every step hurt. "How are you feeling, honey?" I asked, all concerned husband, as I handed her a cup of coffee. "Terrible," she groaned, sinking into a kitchen chair. "I can't believe I got food poisoning on our anniversary. I'm so embarrassed. These things happen. The important thing is that you're feeling better." She wasn't, though. I could tell by the way she kept shifting uncomfortably and the pained expressions that crossed her face. Whatever those laxatives were, they were the gift that kept on giving. "I think I'm going to call in sick today," she said, pulling out her phone. "Good idea. You should rest." I watched her scroll through her messages, and I saw her face change when she found whatever she was looking for. A little frown appeared between her eyebrows, and she typed something quickly. "I'm going back to bed," she announced, standing carefully. "I'll bring you some soup later." As soon as she was upstairs, I grabbed my keys and headed to the store. Sam was already there, organizing inventory with the efficiency of someone who'd been doing it for 15 years. "You look like hell," he said without looking up from his clipboard. "Thanks for the pep talk. Seriously, what happened last night? You sounded weird in your text." Sam was the kind of friend everyone needs. Loyal, honest, and blessed with the ability to keep his mouth shut when necessary. He'd been my right-hand man at the store since I'd bought it, and more importantly, he'd been my friend since high school. If anyone would understand what I was going through, it was Sam. "Lena's cheating on me." Sam dropped his clipboard. "What?" I told him everything. The restaurant, the warning from the stranger, the contents of Lena's purse, the whole sordid mess. By the time I finished, Sam was shaking his head in disbelief. That conniving little... I never liked her, you know that, right? You've mentioned it, subtly, about 1,000 times. So, what are you going to do? I need proof. Real proof, not just suspicions and circumstantial evidence. You thinking about hiring a private investigator? Already ahead of you. I pulled out a business card I'd found online that morning. Marty Geller, licensed PI, former cop, specializes in marital investigations. I'm seeing him this afternoon. Sam grinned. This is going to be good. Marty Geller's office was exactly what you'd expect from a private investigator in a small New England town. Cramped, cluttered, and smelling like old coffee and disappointment. Marty himself looked like he'd stepped out of a noir novel. Late 40s, gray hair, tired eyes that had seen too much. Cheating wife? He asked before I'd even sat down. Is it that obvious? Buddy, 90% of my business is cheating spouses. The other 10% is insurance fraud and missing persons. You don't look like you're missing anybody, and you don't look rich enough to commit insurance fraud worth my time. I liked him already. Tell me what you know, he said, pulling out a yellow legal pad. I went through it all again. The restaurant incident, the purse contents, Lena's behavior over the past few months. Marty took notes, occasionally asking questions that made me realize he'd done this dance many times before. The guy at the bar, Joel Haddon, you know anything about him? Personal trainer at Fitzone Gym, married to a woman named Becca, I think. Lives over on Elm Street in one of those new developments. Kids? I don't think so. Marty made more notes. Here's what I'm going to do. I'll tail your wife for a few days, get some photos, maybe some video if we're lucky. I'll also do some background on this Joel character, see what kind of guy we're dealing with. How much is this going to cost me? $500 a day plus expenses. Most cases like this wrap up in 3 to 5 days. I wrote him a check for $1,500. Get me everything. One more thing, Marty said as I stood to leave. What are you planning to do with this information once you have it? I haven't decided yet. Word of advice? Don't do anything stupid. Revenge feels good in the moment, but prison orange isn't your color. I'm not going to hurt anyone. Good, but there are lots of ways to hurt someone without laying a finger on them. Just remember that. I left his office with a strange sense of anticipation. For the first time in months, I felt like I was taking control of my life, instead of just letting things happen to me. The next few days passed in a weird sort of normalcy. Lena went to work, I went to the store, we had dinner together and watched TV like any other married couple. But underneath the surface, everything had changed. I found myself studying her, looking for tells, cataloging every lie and evasion. She was good at it. I had to give her credit. If I hadn't known what to look for, I might never have noticed the way she angled her phone away from me when she texted, or how she'd started taking her calls in the other room, or the fact that she'd suddenly developed an interest in working late. On Wednesday, she announced she was going out with her girlfriends. Where are you going? I asked casually. Just dinner and drinks. You know how Ray and Chloe get when they want to catch up? Ray and Chloe were Lena's work friends, and they did indeed like to catch up over expensive wine and gossip. But something about the way Lena said it made me think she wouldn't be seeing them at all. Have fun. Don't wait up for me. I've got inventory to finish at the store. Okay, honey. Love you. Love you too. The words felt like ash in my mouth. I did go to the store, but only to meet Marty in the parking lot. He'd been following Lena for 3 days and had promised to show me what he'd found. Your wife's not very good at this, he said, handing me a manila envelope. She uses the same motel every time, parks in the same spot, even uses her real name on the register. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. The photos were crystal clear, taken with a telephoto lens that captured every detail. Lena walking into the Sleepy Inn Motel on Route 9. Lena kissing Joel in the parking lot. Lena and Joel entering room 214 together. There's more, Marty said quietly. The next set of photos showed Joel leaving the motel alone about an hour later, looking frustrated and angry. Then Lena emerging 20 minutes after that, also looking upset. What do you think happened? I asked. Based on the body language and the timing, I'd say Romeo had some performance issues. Your wife looked pretty disappointed when she left. I almost smiled. The laxatives in her purse suddenly made perfect sense. She'd been planning to drug me so I'd be incapacitated while she went to meet Joel, but instead she'd drugged herself and missed their rendezvous. Joel had probably been wondering where she was all evening. There's something else, Marty continued. I did some digging on Joel Haddon. Guy's got a reputation around town. This isn't his first affair, and your wife isn't his only current side piece. What do you mean? He's seeing at least two other women that I know of. One's a divorced teacher named Linda Morrison. The other's a young woman who works at the bank. Guy's busier than a one-legged cat in a sandbox. The hits just kept coming. Not only was my wife cheating on me, she was cheating with a serial cheater who was juggling multiple women. The humiliation burned in my chest like acid. What about his wife? Does she know? Becca Haddon? Hard to say. She's either completely oblivious or the best actress in town. I've been watching their house, and she seems to go about her business like nothing's wrong. But women are good at hiding what they know. I stared at the photos, my mind racing. I want you to keep following them. I want to know everything, when they meet, where they go, what they do, everything. What are you planning, Nick? I'm planning to give them exactly what they deserve. Marty studied my face for a long moment. Just remember what I said about Prison Orange. Don't worry. What I have in mind is perfectly legal, humiliating, but legal. I drove home with the photos burning a hole in the passenger seat. Lena wasn't back yet, probably drowning her sorrows with her girlfriends, telling them some sob story about her disappointing evening. But as I pulled into my driveway, I saw her car already there. The lights were on in the living room, and through the window, I could see her pacing back and forth, phone pressed to her ear. I sat in my truck for a moment, watching my wife of 22 years lie to someone else the way she'd been lying to me. Then I got out, pasted on my best concerned husband expression, and went inside to play my part. "Hey, honey, you're home early," I called out. She ended her call quickly and turned to face me with a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. "The girls canceled at the last minute. Ray's got a sick kid. That's too bad. How about I make us some popcorn and we watch a movie?" "That sounds perfect." We spent the evening on the couch, her head on my shoulder, watching some romantic comedy that made me want to throw the remote through the TV. But I played the loving husband, stroking her hair and making all the right noises at all the right moments. Inside, though, I was planning her downfall with the precision of a military campaign. Friday morning brought rain and the kind of gray sky that matched my mood perfectly. Lena was getting ready for work, humming some pop song while she applied her makeup with the skill of a professional artist. I watched her from the bed, marveling at how someone could look so innocent while being so fundamentally dishonest. "I might be late tonight," she said, not meeting my eyes in the mirror. "A big presentation on Monday, and the team wants to work through the weekend." "On a Friday night?" "You know how it is in marketing. Deadlines don't care about weekends." I knew exactly how it was in marketing because I'd been married to someone in marketing for over 2 decades. Weekend work happened, but not like this. Not with the nervous energy and avoiding eye contact that screamed deception. "Well, don't work too hard. I'll probably grab dinner with Sam anyway." She visibly relaxed. "That sounds nice. You two haven't hung out in a while." After she left, I called Marty. "They're meeting tonight," I told him. "She's already laying the groundwork for being late." "I'll be ready." "You sure you want to go through with this?" "I'm sure." "All right. Meet me at the hardware store at 7. We'll go over the plan one more time." I spent the day at the store trying to focus on customers and inventory, but my mind kept wandering to what was coming. Sam noticed my distraction and finally cornered me in the back office. "You're making me nervous," he said. "What exactly are you planning to do? Remember that old saying about giving someone enough rope to hang themselves? Yeah, I'm about to open a rope factory." At 7 o'clock sharp, Marty pulled up behind the store in a nondescript sedan that screamed rental car. He had a duffel bag full of equipment that looked like it belonged in a spy movie. "Okay, here's what we're going to do," he said, spreading photos of the Sleepy Inn across my desk. "Room 214 is on the second floor, corner room. The lock is old, the kind you can open with a credit card if you know what you're doing. Please tell me you're not suggesting we break in." "We're not breaking in. We're conducting surveillance from a legally permissible location." He pointed to a photo of the room's window. "That window faces the parking lot. There's a maintenance shed about 50 yards away with a clear line of sight. We set up there with a telephoto lens and wait. That's it. That's it. We document everything, get clear photos of them together, and you have your evidence for the divorce proceedings." It sounded almost anticlimactic. "What about the other thing we discussed?" Marty grinned and pulled out a small device that looked like a hearing aid. "Wireless audio transmitter, range of about 100 yards. If you can get this into the room beforehand, we'll be able to hear everything." "How am I supposed to get into the room?" "You're not. I am. I'll go in this afternoon, plant the device, and be out before housekeeping comes around. The beauty of cheap motels is that security is more of a suggestion than a reality. We drove to the Sleepy Inn in separate cars. The place looked exactly like what it was, a relic from the 1970s that had seen better decades. The neon sign flickered intermittently, and the parking lot was cracked asphalt held together by weeds and hope. Marty disappeared into the building while I waited in the maintenance shed, which turned out to be unlocked and filled with rusty tools and the smell of motor oil. Through the grimy window, I had a perfect view of room 214. 20 minutes later, Marty emerged from the building and gave me a thumbs up. The trap was set. Now all we had to do was wait. Lena's car appeared at 8:47 p.m., followed 3 minutes later by Joel's red Mustang. Even from a distance, I could see the nervous energy in the way they moved, the quick glances around the parking lot, the hurried kiss before they disappeared into the building. "Audio check," Marty whispered into his radio. The response came through crystal clear. "Can't believe you stood me up on Wednesday. I waited for 2 hours." Joel's voice, petulant and whiny. "I told you I got sick. Food poisoning or something." "I was in the bathroom all night." Lena making excuses. "Well, you're here now. Did you bring the stuff?" "Of course I brought the stuff. Do you think I'm an amateur?" I heard rustling, then Lena's voice again. "Here's the Viagra for you, and I've got protection. I also brought these." More rustling. "Laxatives for Nick's coffee tomorrow morning. He'll be stuck in the bathroom while we have a nice long lunch at that new place on 5th Street. My hands clenched into fists. She was planning to drug me again. "You're evil," Joel said, but he sounded impressed rather than disgusted. "I like that in a woman. Just take your little blue pill and show me how much you like it." What happened next was like listening to the world's worst adult movie, except I knew one of the actors personally and wanted to scrub my brain with steel wool. I tried to focus on the legal implications of what I was hearing rather than the personal betrayal, but it was like trying to ignore a root canal. Then, about 15 minutes in, things took an interesting turn. "Oh, God," Joel gasped, but not in a good way. "Something's wrong." "What do you mean something's wrong?" "I mean, something's really wrong. I need to—" Oh, no. There was a sound like a small explosion, followed by a string of curses that would have made a sailor blush. "What the hell, Joel?" "I don't know. This has never happened before. Did you just—" "I think the Viagra was bad or something. My stomach feels like it's on fire." More explosive sounds, this time accompanied by what sounded like Joel running for the bathroom. Marty looked at me with raised eyebrows. "Did you—" I nodded. "Yesterday, while Lena was at work, I might have switched out some of the contents of her purse. The Viagra she gave him? Actually laxatives. The laxatives she was planning to give me? Actually Viagra. You sneaky bastard. I learned from the best." The audio feed continued to broadcast Joel's digestive distress, while Lena grew increasingly frustrated. "This is ridiculous. Can't you get it together?" "I'm trying. Something's really wrong here." "Well, try harder. I told Nick I'd be working late, not dealing with your stomach problems." "Maybe we should reschedule." "Reschedule? I've been looking forward to this all week." "I'm really sorry, but I think I need to go home." "Fine, but next time, don't take expired medication." Through the telephoto lens, we watched Joel emerge from the building, looking green around the gills and walking like he'd been riding a horse for 3 days. He drove away in his Mustang, leaving Lena standing in the parking lot looking like she wanted to kick something. She stood there for a full 5 minutes, probably trying to figure out how to salvage her evening, before getting back in her car and driving away. "Well," Marty said, packing up his equipment, "that was educational. Did you get everything? Every word, every photo. Your wife and her boyfriend just handed you the best divorce evidence I've seen in 20 years of doing this job." I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt empty. 22 years of marriage, reduced to audio recordings of my wife planning to drug me so she could cheat more effectively. "What now?" I asked. "Now you decide what you want to do with this information. You've got enough to take her to the cleaners in divorce court. But something tells me you've got bigger plans." He was right. Divorce was the endgame, but it wasn't the whole game. Lena had humiliated me, lied to me, and tried to drug me. Joel had helped her do it, knowing she was married, not caring about the damage he was causing. They both deserved more than just legal consequences. They deserved public humiliation. They deserved to feel exactly as small and powerless as they'd made me feel. And I was just the man to give it to them. Marty, how do you feel about a little creative surveillance? Depends on how creative we're talking. I want to know everything about both of them. Where they go, who they talk to, what their routines are. I want to know their weaknesses, their fears, their embarrassing secrets. That's going to cost extra. Money's not an object. Marty studied my face in the dim light of the maintenance shed. You're not planning to hurt anyone, are you? I'm planning to hurt them in the only way that really matters. Their pride, their reputation, their sense of superiority. I'm going to make them famous in all the wrong ways. As long as it's legal. Scout's honor. Were you actually a scout? No, but I was an altar boy. That's got to count for something. Marty laughed despite himself. All right, Nick, let's ruin some lives. The weekend passed in a strange bubble of normalcy. Lena came home Friday night claiming exhaustion from her work session, and I played the sympathetic husband perfectly. I made her tea, rubbed her shoulders, and listened to her complain about demanding clients and impossible deadlines. If she noticed that I'd switched the contents of her purse back to their original configuration, she didn't mention it. The laxatives were once again laxatives, and the Viagra was once again Viagra. I wanted her to think Joel's performance issues were a one-time thing, not part of a larger pattern. Saturday morning, she announced she was going to the gym. I thought you might want to come with me, she said, stretching in her yoga pants in a way that once would have driven me crazy. You've been talking about getting back in shape. Thanks, but I've got to help Sam with inventory. Rain check? Of course. I knew she wasn't going to work out. She was going to see Joel, probably to discuss what had gone wrong Friday night and plan their next rendezvous. What she didn't know was that Marty would be following her, documenting every moment. While she was gone, I put the next phase of my plan into motion. Joel Haddon was active on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, the whole narcissistic package. His accounts were public, probably because he liked the attention, and they painted a picture of a man who thought very highly of himself. Shirtless gym selfies, motivational quotes about crushing your goals, photos of expensive meals and craft cocktails, but more importantly, they showed his schedule. He posted constantly, tagging locations and times like he was conducting surveillance on himself. I now knew that he worked out at 6 a.m. every weekday, had lunch at the same sandwich shop every Tuesday, and played basketball with friends every Thursday night at the community center. His wife, Becca, was less active online, but her accounts told their own story. Recent posts showed her looking increasingly unhappy, with forced smiles and captions that tried too hard to project marital bliss. Date night with my amazing husband, she'd written under a photo from 2 weeks ago. But Joel looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. I felt a pang of sympathy for her. She was as much a victim in this as I was, maybe more so. At least I knew what was happening. She was still living in ignorance, probably blaming herself for whatever distance she felt in her marriage. That gave me an idea. I created a fake email account and sent Becca a simple message. I think you should know that your husband is cheating on you with multiple women. If you want proof, meet me at Starbucks on Main Street tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'll be wearing a red baseball cap and carrying a copy of the Sunday paper. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to help you see the truth. I signed it a friend and hit send before I could change my mind. Sunday afternoon, I sat in Starbucks wearing my red cap and feeling like a character in a bad spy novel. I'd chosen a table near the window where I could see the parking lot, and I'd brought actual newspapers as props. Becca Haddon walked in at exactly 2 p.m. She was prettier in person than in her photos, with auburn hair and green eyes that looked like they'd been crying recently. She scanned the coffee shop nervously until her gaze settled on me and my red cap. "Are you the person who emailed me?" she asked, sliding into the chair across from me. "Yes, thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't." She wrapped her hands around a coffee cup like it was an anchor. "But things have been weird lately. Joel's been distant, secretive. I keep telling myself I'm being paranoid, but you're not being paranoid." I slid a manila envelope across the table. "I'm sorry to be the one to show you this, but you deserve to know the truth." Her hands shook as she opened the envelope and looked through the photos Marty had taken. Her face went through a series of expressions: confusion, recognition, hurt, and finally, anger. "Who is she?" she asked, pointing to a photo of Joel kissing Lena in the motel parking lot. "Her name is Lena Weller. She's married too." "And you are?" "Nick Weller, Lena's husband." Becca stared at me for a long moment, then started laughing. It wasn't a happy sound. "So we're both idiots," she said finally. "We were both trusting." "That's not the same thing as being idiots." "How long has this been going on?" "I'm not sure exactly. I only found out a week ago, but based on what I've learned, Joel has a pattern of this behavior. You're not his first victim, and my wife isn't his only current project." I told her about the other women Marty had identified, watching her face crumble with each new revelation. By the time I finished, she was crying openly. I feel so stupid, she whispered. All those late nights at the gym, all those weekend training sessions with clients. I believed every lie. So did I. The question is, what do we do about it? She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. What do you mean? I mean, do we just file for divorce and let them move on to their next victims? Or do we make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of people they are? I don't understand. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. And Joel's reputation is built on being this fitness guru, this motivational speaker who helps people transform their lives. What happens to that reputation when everyone knows he's a serial cheater who destroys marriages for fun? And Lena works in marketing for a company that prides itself on family values and community involvement. Think they'd be interested to know one of their employees is using company time to plan affairs? Becca was quiet for a long moment, staring at the photos spread across the table. You want revenge. I want justice. There's a difference. Is there? Revenge is about hurting people because they hurt you. Justice is about making sure there are consequences for bad behavior. If we don't do something, they'll just keep doing this to other people. She gathered up the photos and put them back in the envelope. What did you have in mind? I smiled. I'm glad you asked. We spent the next hour planning what I privately called Operation Public Humiliation. The beauty of it was that we wouldn't have to do anything illegal or even particularly cruel. We'd simply make sure the truth came to light in the most public, embarrassing way possible. Joel's basketball game on Thursday night was perfect. It was at the community center, which meant a big crowd of friends and neighbors. Marty had already confirmed that both Joel and Lena would be there. She'd started attending his games as a supportive friend. Becca would show up unexpectedly, something she'd never done before, and confront Joel in front of everyone. She'd have copies of the photos, and she'd make sure everyone understood exactly what kind of man they'd been cheering for. Are you sure you can do this? I asked her as we prepared to leave. I've been practicing what I want to say all week, she said, and there was steel in her voice now. Joel thinks I'm weak, that I'll just take whatever he dishes out. He's about to learn how wrong he is. What about after? Do you have somewhere to stay? My sister lives in Boston. I can stay with her while I figure out what comes next. Good. And Becca? I'm sorry this happened to you. You don't deserve any of it. Neither do you. We shook hands in the parking lot, two wounded people who'd found strength in shared purpose. Thursday couldn't come fast enough. Monday and Tuesday crawled by. Lena went through her normal routine, going to work, coming home, playing the devoted wife, but I could see the cracks in her performance now. The way she checked her phone constantly. The little smiles when she thought I wasn't looking. The careful way she planned her schedule to allow for spontaneous meetings with Joel. Wednesday night, she announced she'd be attending Joel's basketball game. Since when do you care about basketball? I asked. Since I realized I should be more supportive of my friends. Joel's been such a good influence on my fitness routine. The least I can do is cheer him on. That's very thoughtful of you. I thought so too. Thursday evening, I positioned myself in the community center parking lot with a perfect view of the entrance. Marty was inside, filming everything with a camera disguised as a phone case. Becca was waiting in her car, envelope of photos on the passenger seat, gathering courage for what she was about to do. Joel's team was winning, and he was playing like a man trying to impress someone. Every shot, every steal, every defensive play was performed with extra flair. In the stands, Lena cheered louder than anyone, drawing curious looks from the other spectators who probably wondered when Nick Weller's wife had become such a basketball fan. At halftime, Becca made her entrance. She walked into that gymnasium like she owned it, head high, shoulders back, every inch the wronged wife seeking justice. The crowd noticed her immediately. Joel's wife had never come to a game before, and her presence caused a ripple of whispers. Joel saw her and froze, the color draining from his face. He knew. Somehow he knew this wasn't going to be good. Becca walked straight onto the court, ignoring the referee's protests, and stopped in front of her husband. "Hello, Joel," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Surprised to see me? Becca, what are you doing here?" "I'm in the middle of a game." "I know exactly what you're in the middle of." She opened the envelope and pulled out the photos. And so does everyone else now. She held up the first photo, Joel and Lena kissing in the motel parking lot, and turned slowly so everyone in the gymnasium could see it. The silence was deafening. "This is my husband," Becca announced to the crowd. "Cheating on me with Lena Weller, who's sitting right up there in the stands." Every head in the place turned to look at Lena, who had gone white as a sheet. "But wait, there's more," Becca continued, pulling out more photos. "Joel's also been seeing Linda Morrison from the elementary school, and Jennifer Chen from First National Bank, and God knows who else." The crowd was eating it up. This was better than reality TV, and it was happening right in front of them. Joel tried to grab the photos, but Becca stepped back. "Don't touch me, you cheating piece of garbage. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow, and I'm taking half of everything, including that precious Mustang you love so much. Becca, please, let's talk about this at home." "Home? You mean the home you've been lying to me in for months? The home where you've been planning your affairs and laughing at how stupid I am?" She turned back to the crowd. "Ladies, take a good look at Joel Haddon. This is what a serial cheater looks like. Don't let him fool you with his pretty smile and his motivational speeches. He's garbage in a nice package." She dropped the photos at his feet and walked out of the gymnasium with more dignity than I'd seen from anyone in years. The crowd erupted in chaos. People were taking pictures with their phones, talking over each other, pointing at Lena, who was trying to disappear into her seat. Joel stood in the middle of the court, surrounded by scattered photos of his infidelity, looking like he wanted to crawl under the floorboards. The game never resumed. How could it? The star player had just been exposed as a cheating scumbag in front of half the town. I drove home with a smile on my face, knowing that by tomorrow morning, everyone in town would know exactly what Joel Haddon and Lena Weller really were. Phase 1 of Operation Public Humiliation was complete. Phase 2 would be even better. The fallout from Thursday night's basketball game was swift and merciless. By Friday morning, the photos were all over social media, shared and reshared with comments that ranged from shocked to gleeful to downright vicious. Joel's reputation as a fitness guru and motivational speaker was in ruins, and Lena's carefully crafted image as a devoted wife and community member had crumbled overnight. I watched it all unfold from the safety of my hardware store, where customers couldn't stop talking about the scandal. Sam was having the time of his life, fielding questions and comments with the skill of a seasoned gossip columnist. "Did you know?" Mrs. Patterson from the flower shop asked me, her eyes bright with curiosity. "About Lena and that trainer?" "I had my suspicions," I said carefully, "but I never imagined it was this extensive. That poor woman making such a scene at the basketball game. She must have been so humiliated. I think she was tired of being humiliated in private. At least now she's taken control of the narrative." Mrs. Patterson nodded approvingly. "Good for her. Men like that Joel character need to be exposed. And your wife..." She trailed off, realizing she was about to criticize a customer's spouse to his face. "My wife made her choices," I said simply. "Now she'll have to live with the consequences." Lena had left for work that morning without saying a word to me. She'd looked like she hadn't slept, and I could hear her on the phone before I got up, probably doing damage control with her friends and coworkers. Around noon, my phone rang. It was Marty. "You need to see this," he said without preamble. "Meet me at the diner on Route 9 in 20 minutes. I found him in a back booth, laptop open, grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. "Joel's having a very bad day," he announced, turning the screen so I could see. He'd pulled up Joel's social media accounts, which were being bombarded with comments from angry wives, disappointed clients, and random internet users who'd seen the photos. His Instagram, which had been full of motivational quotes and shirtless selfies, was now a wasteland of deleted posts and disabled comments. "It gets better," Marty said, clicking to a local news website. "Look at this." The headline read, "Local fitness trainer exposed in cheating scandal." The article included several of the photos from Thursday night, along with quotes from unnamed sources about Joel's pattern of targeting married women. "How did they get all this information so fast?" I asked. "Funny thing about small towns," Marty said. "Once a scandal breaks, everyone wants to share what they know. Turns out Joel's been leaving a trail of broken marriages for years. The basketball game just gave people permission to talk about it publicly." "What about Lena?" "Her company's doing an internal investigation. Apparently, someone sent them copies of all the photos, along with documentation showing she was using company time and resources to conduct her affair." I felt a stab of satisfaction. Any idea who might have done that? Could have been anyone. These things have a way of finding their way to the right people. Of course, it had been me. I'd spent hours Thursday night crafting the perfect email to Lena's supervisor, complete with timestamps showing when she'd been texting Joel during work hours, and evidence of her using company credit cards for motel rooms. "There's something else," Marty continued. "Joel's wife isn't the only one filing for divorce. Linda Morrison and Jennifer Chen have both hired lawyers. Apparently, Joel told each of them they were his only affair partner. They're not happy about finding out they were part of a harem. The web of lies was unraveling faster than I dared hope. Joel hadn't just cheated, he'd created an entire network of deception that was now collapsing on top of him. "What's next?" Marty asked. "Now we wait and see how they react. Desperate people make stupid decisions, and I want to be ready when they do." I didn't have to wait long. That evening, Lena came home looking like she'd been through a war. Her eyes were red from crying. Her usually perfect hair was a mess, and she moved like someone carrying a heavy weight. "We need to talk," she said, without preamble. I figured we might. We sat in our living room, surrounded by 22 years of shared memories, and faced the end of our marriage. "I suppose you've heard," she said finally. "Hard to avoid. It's all over town." "I'm sorry, Nick. I'm so sorry. Sorry you got caught, or sorry you did it." She was quiet for a long moment. Both, I guess. "How long, Lena? How long has this been going on?" "With Joel? About 6 months. But what?" "There were others, before Joel, not many, but the admission hit me like a physical blow. I'd suspected Joel was recent, but the idea that there had been others, that our entire marriage had been built on lies, was almost too much to process." "Why?" I asked. "What did I do wrong? What wasn't I giving you?" "Nothing," she said quickly. "You didn't do anything wrong. You're a good man, Nick. You always have been. That was part of the problem." "I don't understand." "You're safe. Predictable. You come home every night. You pay the bills. You remember anniversaries and birthdays. You're everything a woman should want in a husband. But I wanted excitement. I wanted to feel desired, pursued, dangerous. I wanted to feel alive again. So you decided to destroy our marriage instead of talking to me about it. I thought I could have both. I thought I could keep you and have my adventures on the side. I never meant for it to go this far. You tried to drug me, Lena. You put laxatives in my drink so you could go screw your boyfriend without me getting in the way. How much further could it go?" She started crying then, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. "I know how it sounds. I know how horrible it is. But I was in so deep, and Joel kept pushing for more time together, and I didn't know how to..." "How to what? Be honest? Show some basic respect for the man you married?" "I was going to end it," she said desperately. "After our anniversary, I was going to break things off with Joel and focus on us." "Bullcrap. You were planning to drug me again this weekend. I found the text messages." Her face went white. "You've been spying on me? I've been protecting myself from someone who was actively trying to harm me. There's a difference." We sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of 22 years pressing down on both of us. "What happens now?" she asked finally. "Now you pack your things and find somewhere else to stay. I'll be filing for divorce on Monday." "Nick, please, can't we try counseling? Can't we work through this?" "Work through what? The cheating? The lying? The attempted drugging? Which part of this nightmare do you think counseling is going to fix?" "I love you," she whispered. "No, you don't. You love the security I provide. You love having a safe place to come home to after your adventures. But you don't love me because if you did, you never would have done this." She packed 2 suitcases and left that night, staying with her sister across town. I watched her go without emotion, feeling like I was watching the end of someone else's life. The house felt different with her gone, not empty exactly, but cleaner somehow. Like a weight had been lifted that I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. Saturday morning brought a knock at my door. I opened it to find Joel Haddon standing on my porch, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "We need to talk," he said. "No, we don't." I started to close the door, but he put his hand against it. "Please, just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I let him in. He stood in my living room like a man facing execution, hands shaking, sweat beading on his forehead. "I want to apologize," he began. "Apology not accepted. You can go now." "You don't understand. This whole thing has destroyed my life. My wife left me. I lost 3 major clients. The gym is talking about canceling my contract. I'm ruined." "Good. Look, I know you're angry, but what happened Thursday night was too far. Having my wife ambush me like that, humiliating me in front of the whole town. I had nothing to do with your wife's decision to expose your cheating." "Right. And I suppose you had nothing to do with those photos showing up online either." "Your affairs were hardly a secret, Joel. You weren't exactly discreet." He started pacing, running his hands through his hair. "You have to help me fix this. Tell people it was just a mistake, that Lena seduced me." "Excuse me?" "She came on to me, man. She was relentless. I tried to say no, but she kept pushing. The rage that had been building in me for weeks finally found its target. I stepped closer to Joel, close enough to see the fear in his eyes. "Let me make something very clear," I said quietly. "My wife is a cheating liar, but she didn't force you to do anything. You pursued her, you seduced her, and you helped her plan ways to deceive me. You're not a victim here, you're a predator." "That's not... it wasn't like that. Get out of my house. Nick, please, get out!" He left quickly, probably sensing how close I was to doing something that would land me in jail. I watched him drive away in his precious Mustang, knowing this wouldn't be the last I'd hear from him. I was right. Sunday morning, I woke up to find my truck's tires slashed and asshole spray-painted across my garage door. It was amateur hour vandalism, the kind of thing a desperate man does when he's run out of better options. I called the police, filed a report, and made sure to mention that Joel Haddon had threatened me the day before. The responding officer, a guy named Mike Torres who'd gone to high school with me, took detailed photos and promised to follow up. "Guy sounds like a real piece of work," he said, shaking his head at the spray paint. "Don't worry, Nick. We'll get him." They did. Joel was arrested Monday afternoon for vandalism and criminal mischief. Apparently, several neighbors had security cameras that caught him in the act, and his red Mustang wasn't exactly inconspicuous. The arrest made the local paper, adding another layer of humiliation to his growing pile of public shame. The headline read, "Disgraced trainer arrested for vandalism," and the article included a helpful recap of the basketball game incident and his multiple affairs. Lena called me that evening, crying and apologetic. "I heard about your truck," she said. "I'm so sorry. Joel's lost his mind. Joel's facing the consequences of his actions, something you might want to consider." "What do you mean?" You're not innocent in this, Lena. You helped plan the drugging. You used company resources for your affair. You lied to me for months. Joel's not the only one who's going to face consequences. Are you threatening me? I'm informing you. Your company's investigation is ongoing, and I have documentation of everything you did. If I were you, I'd start looking for a new job. She was quiet for a long moment. "You've changed, Nick. You used to be kind. I used to be naive. There's a difference." Tuesday brought news that Lena had been fired from her job. The official reason was violation of company policy regarding personal conduct, but everyone knew what it really meant. Word traveled fast in a small town, especially when it involved scandal. Wednesday, I received divorce papers from her lawyer. She was trying to get ahead of the situation, probably hoping to salvage something from the wreckage of our marriage. Her demands were laughable, half of everything, including the house and my business, plus alimony. I forwarded the papers to my own lawyer, a woman named Carla Martinez, who had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless in divorce proceedings. "She's got some nerve," Carla said when we met Thursday afternoon. "Cheating wife tries to drug her husband, gets caught, loses her job, and then demands half his assets. I've seen some audacious moves in my time, but this takes the cake." "What are our chances?" "With the evidence you've provided, she'll be lucky to get her clothes and her car. The attempted drugging alone is enough to disqualify her from any significant settlement." "Good. There is one thing, though. Her lawyer's claiming emotional abuse, saying you conducted a campaign of harassment and humiliation against her and her boyfriend." I felt a chill. "Can they prove that?" "Can they prove you hired a private investigator to document her affair?" "Probably." "Can they prove you orchestrated the public confrontation at the basketball game?" "That might be harder." "Can they prove you sent those photos to her employer?" "Only if you were careless." "I wasn't careless." "Good. But Nick, I have to ask, did you do those things?" "I documented my wife's infidelity and made sure the truth came to light. If that's harassment, then every cheated-on spouse in America is guilty of harassment." Carla smiled. "That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say." The divorce proceedings moved quickly after that. Lena's claims of emotional abuse fell apart when Carla presented evidence of the attempted drugging, the company policy violations, and the months of systematic deception. The judge was not sympathetic to a woman who'd tried to poison her husband so she could cheat on him more conveniently. In the end, Lena got her personal belongings, her car, and a small settlement that would cover her moving expenses. Everything else, the house, the business, our savings, stayed with me. Joel pleaded guilty to the vandalism charges and was sentenced to community service and restitution. His fitness career was over, his marriage was over, and his reputation was in ruins. Last I heard, He'd left town, probably to start fresh somewhere else where people didn't know his story. Becca Haddon sent me a thank you card 6 months later, along with a photo of her new apartment in Boston. She looked happy, healthier than she had in years. "Thank you for helping me find the strength to stand up for myself," she wrote. "I'm finally free." Lena moved to Florida, where her sister lived, and found work at a small marketing firm that probably didn't do thorough background checks. She sent me a letter once, months after the divorce was final, apologizing again and asking if we could find a way to be friends. I threw the letter away without finishing it. People in town still talk about the basketball game incident sometimes, usually when someone new moves to the area and needs to be filled in on the local gossip. The story has grown in the telling. In some versions, Becca threw the photos at Joel like confetti. In others, the entire crowd booed him off the court. I don't correct the embellishments. The truth was dramatic enough. 6 months after the divorce was final, I ran into Marty at the hardware store. He was buying supplies for a home renovation project, and we chatted about mutual acquaintances and local news. "Any regrets?" he asked as I rang up his purchase. "About what?" "The whole revenge campaign? Some people might say you went too far." I thought about it for a moment, considering the question seriously. I exposed the truth about two people who were hurting innocent victims. I made sure there were consequences for their actions. I protected myself from someone who was actively trying to harm me. Which part of that was too far? When you put it like that. The way I see it, Lena and Joel created their own problems. I just made sure those problems became public knowledge instead of private shame. Marty nodded approvingly. Justice served, then. Justice served. As he left the store, I reflected on how much my life had changed in the past year. The house was quieter now, but it was also more peaceful. I didn't have to wonder where my wife was or who she was with. I didn't have to worry about being drugged or lied to or betrayed. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. There's a difference. Sam locked up the store that evening while I finished some paperwork in the back office. As we walked to our cars, he asked the same question Marty had. "Any regrets, boss?" I looked up at the clear evening sky, breathing in the crisp autumn air, and smiled. "Just one," I said. "What's that?" "I should have done it sooner.